Northern Italy and the Gothic line. After the capture of Rome and the Normandy invasion in June, many experienced American and French units, the equivalent of 7 divisions, pulled out of Italy during the summer of 1944 to participate in Operation Dragoon, the Allied invasion of the south of France. These units were partially compensated for by the arrival of the Brazilian 1st Infantry Division, the land forces element of the Brazilian Expeditionary Force. In the period from June to August of 1944, the Allies advanced beyond Rome, taking Florence and closing up on the Gothic line. The Gothic line formed Field Marshal Albert Kesselring's last major line of defense in the final stages of World War II, along the summits of the northern part of the Apennine Mountains, during the fighting retreat of the German forces in Italy against the Allied armies in Italy commanded by General Sir Harold Alexander. This last major defensive line ran from the coast some 30 miles north of Pisa, along the jagged Apennine Mountains chain between Florence and Bologna to the Adriatic coast just south of Rimini. In order to shorten the Allied lines of communication for the advance into northern Italy, the Polish Second Corps advanced towards the port of Ancona, and after a month-long battle, they succeeded in capturing it on the 18th of July. During Operation Olive, the major Allied offensive in the autumn of 1944, which commenced on the 25th of August, the Gothic line defenses were penetrated on both the 8th Army and 5th Army fronts, but there was no decisive breakthrough. Churchill had hoped that a major advance in the autumn of 1944 would open the way for the Allied armies to advance northeastwards through the Ljubljana Gap, the area between Venice and Vienna, modern Slovenia, to Vienna and Hungary, to forestall the Russians advancing into Eastern Europe. Churchill's proposal had been strongly opposed by the U.S. Chiefs of Staff, who, understanding its importance to British post-war interests in the region, did not feel it aligned with prevailing overall Allied war priorities. The Allies' final offensive commenced with massive aerial and artillery bombardments on the 9th of April of 1945. By the 18th of April, 8th Army forces in the east had broken through the Argenta Gap and sent armor racing forward in an encircling move to meet the U.S. Ivy Corps advancing from the Apennines in central Italy and to trap the remaining defenders of Bologna. On the 21st of April, Bologna was entered by the Polish 3rd Carpathian Rifle Division, the Italian Friuli Group, both from 8th Army, and the U.S. 34th Infantry Division, from 5th Army. 10th Mountain Division, which had bypassed Bologna, reached the River Po on the 22nd of April. The Indian 8th Infantry Division, on the 8th Army front, reached the river on the 23rd of April. By the 25th of April, the Italian Partisans Committee of Liberation declared a general uprising, and on the same day, having crossed the Po on the right flank, forces of the 8th Army advanced north-northeast towards Venice and Trieste. On the U.S. 5th Army front, elements drove north toward Austria and northwest to Milan. On the Army's left flank, the 92nd Infantry Division, or the Buffalo Soldiers Division, went along the coast to Genoa in a rapid advance towards Turin. By the Brazilian Division on their right, took the German-Italian Army of Liguria by surprise, causing its collapse. As April came to an end, Army Group C, the Axis forces in Italy, retreating on all fronts and having lost most of its fighting strength, was left with little option but surrender. General Heinrich von Vietinghoff, who had taken command of Army Group C after Kesselring had been transferred to become Commander-in-Chief of the Western Front in March of 1945, signed the instrument of surrender on behalf of the German armies in Italy on the 29th of April, formally bringing hostilities to an end on the 2nd of May 1945.